major gains in the midterms. Why do I think this? First of all, we've seen the economy. The economy is not doing as well as it was 2 years ago. Inflation is running out of control, and the Democrats control both the House of Congress and the presidency. This is squarely on their watch. The inflation has been spiraling out of control. That's going to be a major, major issue in the midterms. And we're going to see Republican candidates win across the country, not just in districts that we're used to winning, but in marginal districts and even Democratic heavy districts. So I think that you're going to see a big majority in Congress for the Republicans. With the Republicans winning the House, and I would say even winning the Senate. Even though the map is in favor of the Republicans, I think Republicans will win in New Hampshire. I think Republicans will win in Nevada. I think Republicans will win in Georgia. That'll be a big pickup. And Republicans will win in Arizona. So I think we'll have a nice majority in the Senate and a big majority in the House. So why is this race in Rhode Island so important if Republicans are going to sweep to victory? And I'll tell you why. New England right now is not represented by a Republican. So if the Republicans win the majority in the House and win the majority in the Senate, New England is represented by only Democrats. New England will be cut out of the representation of the leadership in the House of Representatives. This will be bad for New England, the Atlantic states, because those states are going to need a bridge to the Republican majority. And I think that Mayor Allan is a great person to be that bridge. He's been a great mayor of Cranston in Rhode Island. He's a brilliant guy. He's got a great family. He's connected throughout the Republican Party, and he's going to govern and do what's best for the people of Rhode Island. And I hope, as the Republican representative from New England, for everyone in New England as well. So I think he's got the mayor has a great chance. His district has been trending more Republican. So I think it's a great chance for a pickup. It would be the first time in, I think, my lifetime we would have elected a Republican in Rhode Island. And we've got a great chance to do it. And I think the mayor's got a great record to run on, economic development, and being a great representative for over a decade in Cranston, coming close to the statewide gubernatorial race. So I think he's got a great political team, and this is going to be a big, big win. And it's going to be a big win for the National Republican Party, and I'll tell you why. By representing a new generation of Republicans, the mayor has a chance to be a national star for the Republican Party. He's going to attract new donors, new voters, a new generation to the Republican Party with his energy, his youth, his enthusiasm, and I think that this is going to be wonderful for the party. He'll be a great representative on Fox News. I can just see him every week appearing on Fox News, touting how the Republicans have a pro-growth agenda, have a pro-education agenda, putting parents first. This is an exciting race, and I want to thank all of you for being early supporters of the mayor, for showing up tonight, for supporting him, and just like all of you, I pledge to max out to the mayor. This campaign is one that we will win. We will send reverberations throughout New England and throughout the country when we show that Republicans can win in every corner of the United States, including in the Northeast. So I'm proud to be here with my good friend Juan tonight, supporting a great candidate for Congress. And I look forward to victory this fall in this crucial race for the Republican Party and for our country, so we can turn our country back to the values that we believe in, of fiscal responsibility. So thank you all for being here. This is going to be a great, fun race.
So much for that passionate speech. Let us know when you're ready to run, and this group will do a fundraiser for you. So Ed, you want to say a few words? And also, Chris, yeah. So Chris, feel free to stay on, or if you need to get onto your other call, feel free to do that. Ed, you want to say a few words?
Yeah. I'll sign off for now because I need to make my flight. Thank you all for your support, and I'll look forward to seeing you all soon.
Okay.
Victory in the fall.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's like that, what Christopher said. This, with respect to the overall race, I was around as Christopher is not quite as active as I was in 1994. And I just been elected chairman of the party in 2010. You will recall in each of those years, we won sweeping victories. 53 seats in the House. First time we had won since 1952, in more than 40 years. And that was under Newt Gingrich. He became the Speaker of the House, and that established the Republicans as strong nationally where we hadn't been before, except in the presidency, but in Congress. In 2010, that was right after Obama had been elected in 2008, we picked up 63 seats in the House. Again, with a huge majority. We picked up the Senate 2 years later also. So this year is going to be just the same as those years for the same reasons. You have a weak president. You have a president who's going the wrong direction with respect to the economy, with respect to energy, with respect to education, and all the issues that we care about, but also the country cares about. We've never had this kind of inflation. It's been 40 years since we've had the kind of inflation that we have now. But and Christopher pointed out all the reasons that Allan is going to be a very strong force in Congress. And it's going to be a big message just by being elected that we can win in all four corners of the country. But beyond that, he is going to be a representative of the issues that all we care about education, that the people of Asian origin care about. And I know many people here, Robin and others, Peter Lau, have been fighting for that issue, for keeping the specialized high schools based on merit, not based on diversity. Even Harvard, it's the same problem. These are issues that you need a spokesperson in Congress who will speak on those issues, and Allan will be that voice. That's
my dear friends and guests. Oh, I hear you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's good.
sorry. I want to face to my friends, but yeah. Yes. Firstly, that thank you. Here.
So you can talk into it.
Yes, that's best. So firstly, that I want to thank you everyone for being here to support Allan tonight. And it is a great honor for Carl and I to have you here. It is exciting time. Allan, that he is our best hope for running this office as GOP, and he has our full support. I can't wait to hear what he's going to say. But before that, I would love to introduce you a lovely lady. I have to say, I am very fascinated. I'm very fascinated by her experiences as politician. You can imagine that she became the first Rhode Islander to defeat the sitting Speaker of the House in 114 years. So the first woman ever to represent this district. Coincidentally, she's Allan's wife.
Thank you so much, Emma. You're so lovely. And thank you so much for introducing. You want me to come here? That's great. Thank you. Well, I want to thank Robin and Fung and Emma, Carl, and everybody. Chairman, it's great to see you here again, too. It's wonderful for your ongoing support over the decade. I can't tell you how proud I am. Yes, I fell into politics, okay? About 2 years ago, around this time, we had a real corrupt speaker in Rhode Island. We just so happened to live in his district. And nobody beats the Speaker of the House. So you know this in politics, right? They're there forever. It's hard. It's hard to do it. And so we decided we wanted a little challenge. And we worked really hard, and we were the little engine that could. And November that night, we won by 18 points. So we took down this monumental thing, and I couldn't have done it obviously without my husband by my side. And it was a wonderful victory to have. But what that meant is, even though people think, wow, you don't have a shot to do this. And so when people think like, wow, you have a great shot in Rhode Island, first time people hear that, they're like, a Republican in Rhode Island. Like that hasn't happened, as Chris said, in so many years. It's actually back into the 1990s. But then when you look at these numbers, they're all lining up, and people, doesn't matter what party you're from, they love Allan. Even my mom. No, because at the end of the day, what people want in a politician is someone who talks like them, who actually cares about them as a human being. He'll see people in the grocery store. He cares about making Rhode Island a better place. And that's why I'm so proud to be by his side and whatnot. And marrying into this wonderful Asian family and getting to know so many of you over the years as I have. When I obviously took over my position in the House, one of the first bills that we were talking about was to continue kind of the national movement that started in Illinois 2 years ago about mandating Asian American education in the schools. So this year it finally got drafted. We submitted it about 4 weeks ago. It was on Chinese New Year. We actually submitted the bill. So we have sponsorship in the House and the Senate. Be another great thing for those generations coming up through the public education to understand not just where the Chinese Americans, Korean Americans, Japanese Americans, where all the struggles they've had in the past, but all of their successes as well, and trying to put a new face and give people a little bit more of a positive education and lift up the entire Asian American community. And so it'll be heard next week, and there's a lot of positive support. So hopefully we'll get Rhode Island be the third state in the nation to mandate Asian American studies in public schools. So that's where we are this year. Right? It's great to have a Republican in there too, but we also have to make sure that Allan never forgets where he came from. I know he will never, but also being that Asian American voice for everybody, regardless of party. I think that's really important, and something that I know is so very important to him. So I can't thank you all enough for being here tonight. Your support means so much to us personally. It's actually just sometimes overwhelming when you think how many great people are trying to come together and say, hey, look, let's get this over the finish line. Let's make history. And I think this will be the right race to do it. So thank you so much for all of your support for coming here tonight, and anything we can do for you, please let us know. Okay? I'll bring Robin over.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here, and also honored to have the chance to introduce our friend Allan. And under the leadership of Mr. Cox and the new immigrant with the financial support, I'm going to have a big fundraiser in Chinatown in the near future for him with the old immigrant. Okay, these are the new immigrant. They have the financial ability, and if you mobilize us in the right way, I think we're going to turn the country red. Okay, that's what we need to be. Chinese always believe in our future, the kids. Education is the most important for us. That's why we are in America. Okay, now we have a chance to have all mostly Republican in the House and the Senate. Let's go for it. Okay, without further ado, my honor to introduce Allan.
Thank you so much, Robin, for that wonderful introduction. And Emma, Carl, thank you so much for hosting us here. Wang, Andrew, Chairman, Christopher, it means so much to me to be back here in New York City with all of you. And for many of you that I had the opportunity to just first meet tonight, I want to talk a little bit about my heritage, my background. I'm first generation born in the United States. My parents came in 1969 from Hong Kong. My mom originally was born in Hoi Ping, my dad in Sunwoo. But both of them ended up in Hong Kong for different reasons when they were about teenagers. My mom after she graduated, my dad even earlier because he had to work. But one of the things that they wanted was a better life for the family that they were about to start. And in 1969, they got married, came to this country, ended up in Rhode Island. You might ask why Rhode Island, but I had an uncle that was there first. But they ended up starting just like many of our, parents, many of our grandparents did. They worked hard, saved enough to start a small family restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, a restaurant that they ran for 35 years. But all throughout that, started 8 years old in that restaurant, washing dishes before I could even, see over the sink. I'd stand on this little milk crate. But that is the experience that drives me every single day. Because as much as I was working in that restaurant,
they were also teaching me about everything that every speaker has talked about, the value of education and the power of education in this great country that can lead to so many open doors for all of us. And that's what they drove in me. And I was very fortunate because Rhode Island has only one specialized school in the city of Providence, Classical High School. And I was fortunate to test into it. And that school opened the doors for me to make sure that I had not only a sound education, but experienced diversity from many different backgrounds in that school. And because of that, I was able to move on to college and ultimately law school. But in my heart, even though I graduated in Boston, had opportunities all across the country, I wanted to come back and give back to the state and the city that meant so much to my family. You know, I ended up, first practicing law, not really thinking about politics. But what ended up happening was the city that I loved, the city where my parents had their restaurant for 35 years, back in early 2000, started into fiscal distress during the height of the economy. And when I started looking at what was going on, what was going wrong, why kids weren't getting the education that they deserved in our school system, and this was the second largest city in the state, I became angry. Angry enough that I put my name on that ballot because I wasn't going to be one of the ones that just complained from the sideline. My parents taught me that the education was such a value that not only should you advance yourself, but also give back. And that's how I ran first for the city council and won. Beat all odds because Cranston, while it's the second largest city, Rhode Island overall has a very small Asian population, only 4%. But despite those odds, I love politics. I love public service, helping not only turn the ship around for our city, but making sure that our kids had a sound educational system. And when the mayor's position opened up, I made sure I ran because I loved it that much that I wanted to dedicate my life to that. Giving up the practice of law, giving up my career at MetLife. And believe me, I spent many times here in New York City, when I was working for MetLife. But I truly cared about our residents. And during the past 12 years in office, I made sure that not only did we right the ship financially and continue on, tackling some of the big problems that, quite frankly, even many of our staff thought I shouldn't be tackling. Third rail issues like pensions, but because we had one of the worst funded pensions in the state. And if we didn't fix that problem, it would have crippled our city and put it further down the line of bankruptcy. People thought I was crazy because back then, when I first started, we were only 2-year terms. And even many of my staff was like, oh, do you really want to touch this issue? But I knew it was the right thing to do because if we didn't tackle this big issue, we're never going to get back on track. And we did, but I did it in a different way. We're sitting here talking about Democrats, Republicans. Well, I wanted to bring everyone to the table. Democrats, Republicans, union members, retirees. We sat down across the table for months and negotiated, did things the right way to make sure that we put that pension plan on a sound path. So much so that our reforms even withstood a challenge that went all the way up to our United States Supreme Court. And because of that, our city saved in just 1 year alone, $7 million off of our payment that was due annually. And with that, we were able to fund more education initiatives, more STEM programs, not just in our high school, but in our middle school so that the kids have a solid foundation going forward. Making sure that we also incorporated arts into our education, but not only just into the next generation, for our seniors. We transformed our senior center into a space to ensure that there were exhibits so that everyone wasn't forgotten and everyone could experience a great quality of life. And because of those changes, I'm proud to say we turned a city that was on the brink of financial bankruptcy. I'm proud that we were named 3 years in a row one of the top 50 cities to live in America. And thank you.
Mayor for New York. We usually use you here.
And Peter, I'm proud to help in New York because I haven't forgotten where I came from and all of you. And Peter Lau was the one that just asked the question and just chimed in. But even though, you know, I'm term limited as mayor, I served 12 years as mayor, I haven't forgotten our community. I've been a voice when I was mayor for many people across the country, not only just Republicans, but Asians and particularly my background, Chinese. And when I saw what was going on here in New York City, especially with the specialized high schools, and I saw, you know, Peter, David, many of you fighting for the right issues, I wasn't afraid to come here and stand by you because it is the right issue. It is the issue for the next generation so that they have the opportunities that I had and many of you had. And not only that, I'm still here because what is going on in New York City and many other cities across the country with the anti-Asian violence, that has to stop. And the only way we're going to stop that is by having more voices out there, forceful voices, to make sure that this issue is constantly on the minds of everyone else. And that's why I'm running for Congress. Because as much as I'm frustrated, like all of you, what's going on in our economy, let's face it, driving here, we just spent close to $100 on gasoline to fill that tank, you know, because we're bordering well over $4, bumping on $5 a gallon, which is ridiculous. But that's because of the policies that are coming on in Washington, D.C. right now. I'm tired, just like many of you, of paying these inflated prices, not just for food, construction, even if you're able to get some of the goods from your retailers. This is ridiculous. And when the chairman talked about, you know, 40 years ago, I was just a young boy, but I still remember going through those policies, those economic policies where, you know, I didn't understand it back then, why we had to wait to get gasoline depending on whether our license plates were odd or even because of the policies that were set into place back during those 70s and 80s. And I promise I will not let that happen in Washington, D.C., because I will fight for all of you, whether it's for a sound economy, better education, but most importantly, continue to be a strong advocate for all of us as Chinese, as Asian, most importantly, all of us in the Northeast. Because as Chris, the chairman, and everyone else talked about, we need a voice. We need a sound voice of reasonable moderation to get things done and bring things back to our communities and our backyards. And that's what I promise and pledge to all of you. So seeing all of your faces here means a lot to me. And I really appreciate all of your support. And I won't let you down because I will continue to be here in New York City and doing whatever I can for all of us, because that's what this country is about. An opportunity for not only the next generation, but continue to make sure that we have a great quality of living in our backyard. So thank you so much. Ladies and
gentlemen. Maybe I start with the first one, Mayor.
Oh, sure.
What do you say the biggest challenge of this race for you?
Now, there's going to be a lot of challenges, and the biggest thing that Chris talked about was, you know, we are in New England, in the Northeast, and Rhode Island is extremely blue. In fact, just to highlight how blue it is, my wife is out of 75 in the House. There's only 10 Republicans. On the Senate, there's 38 senators. There's only 5 Republicans in the Senate. We haven't had a statewide office holder since Governor Kachiri back in early 2000s. And we haven't had a federal elected office since the 1990s. So despite that, this is the right time and right opportunity because this congressional seat, the 2nd congressional district, even though it is still a Democratic leaning district, I won this district against Governor Raimondo back in 2014 by 4 points, even with a third-party candidate. And in 2018, if it wasn't for another third-party candidate in that bad Democratic strong year, but bad year for Republicans, I was right there, and that third party candidate took over 4% from me. So this is the opportunity to drive out the vote, and we're going to be, watched nationally if we hit our metrics. And we plan on hitting our metrics of making sure that we have strong fundraising, strong policies, but most importantly, strong poll numbers to make sure that the National Republican Congressional Committee see that we are a top tier race across the country and one that will take back a seat in, New England.
Well, let me just raise an issue that I think is on everyone's mind here, which you will be a leader when you are elected to the House of Representatives. It's not one that you're going to be elected on, so everything you said is correct with respect to your getting elected. And that's where China's been going since 2012. It's been going in the wrong direction. It's no longer, I visited China with President Nixon in 1979, met with Deng Xiaoping. China was dirt poor. And think over 35 years for the policies that we heard him talk about in that meeting with him in 1979, leadership he gave, it pointed in the right direction. The leadership that he picked for the future, including Carl's uncle, who was a part of that, and putting things in the right direction. But that was 35 years. Now things have been going in the wrong direction. Young people, particularly from Hong Kong, also from the mainland, they want to come here because we're now more opportunity here than the way China's going. That is a very important issue for you to represent those young people when they come here. But also, and maybe you want to address this, dealing with the issues between the United States and China that are going to be more and more difficult. China keeps going in the direction that's going. You may want to address how you'll be able to give that leadership as a member of Congress.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman, for that, because out of all the candidates that are there, that's one of I can speak freely on because of who I am, because of the fact that, my parents were born there and understand not only the culture, but the relationship and the dynamics that have transformed from what you were talking about, Chairman, 35 years ago to where it is now today. And I understand the issues, not just about US-China relations, but also what is going on between China and Taiwan and the importance of that to our trade with the United States, as well as making sure that we continue to foster that next generation into United States, because that type of relationship has to continue. But most importantly, opportunity has to continue for many of the individuals coming here into the United States. But outside of just that scenario in that context with China, we're also seeing internationally the importance of having someone that understands international relations, because we are all right now scared with what is going on between Russia and the Ukraine. And it is having a broad worldwide global impact on our economies, but most importantly, that sense of security for all of us, and especially in, many individuals in Europe. So that's one of the dynamics that I will bring to the House as well, and hopefully be an opportunity to serve as a voice, possibly on foreign relations.
I happen to be ABC. That is no friend of mine. My parents came here in the 1930s. My father served in World War II. I remember I worked in Hong Kong in 1986 at Merrill Lynch. And then I came back and I said I was homesick. My first job was to go to a city called Anhui, to take a company public. My father served in World War II with my uncle. He said, my dad, I'm going to China. He said, what are you, crazy? They're going to lock you up there. So the issue that I have is for our generation, David Lee, the ABC, how do we face the Asian hate crime, the education? I mean, I appreciate China and the big players. We're the everyday guys. I'm worried about my kids going to school and I get attacked by this person. I'm worried about they're taking away, the US made the law for the SCST for the kids. All of a sudden now, all these Chinese got into Brooklyn, Texas. You guys are too smart. I'm going to change the law for them. I didn't make the law. You made the law. My parents paid for my books, my education. They sacrificed when I had to study. Sorry, I didn't make broken tech, but the other guys did. But the point is that how do you stop the laws that was created for our generation and turn around? I grew up with affirmative action. I worked for Reagan. Ed brought me into his group. But now it's reverse discrimination. I mean, I appreciate China, but I'm the everyday person that has a kid or grandkid that's in school. I'm more about him walking across the street, doesn't get beat up by the guy there because he's anti-Asian. So how do you deal with that?
Now, and there's a lot of different ways we can deal with the anti-Asian. In fact, we're doing it and have dealt with it in Rhode Island as well. Obviously, it's not to the extent of what you are facing here in New York City, but education is an important part of it. A commitment of resources to, let people know who we are and what we add to the community. And in Rhode Island, in fact, I'm working with the governor's office, with Rhode Island Foundation to put into place some dollars to fund, not necessarily a public service, but a continued campaign about educating about the value that we add to Rhode Island, who we are, what we do, what we contribute. Most importantly, that we are one of all of you that resides in the state. But second of all, safety is a critically important thing. What we also did was made sure that we met not only with our state's attorney, but we brought in our US attorney and spoke with them about the importance of prosecuting to the fullest extent hate crimes and really have a true understanding so that their frontline prosecutors aren't dismissing even acts of microaggression that sometimes, rise to the level of hate crime. So you don't necessarily always have to just focus on the actual assault, but there are a lot of other, actions that should be prosecuted within those hate crime statutes. And if you prosecute it, send a strong message, that will, deter much of what is also going on. But here in New York City, as well as across the country, especially what I'm seeing in a lot of urban areas, it's also a mental health issue where a lot of individuals have a lot more needs. And this pandemic has certainly exacerbated that need. So more dollars and resources really needs to be put into that continuing mental health, behavioral health type system to support our communities so that we're holistically tackling these issues from a comprehensive standpoint.
Thank you. And I appreciate my China, what everyday American Chinese here, who have kids that go to school, or grandkids, and then they come home being attacked. I mean, in the old days it was Japanese, then it was Chinese, it was Korean. The woman that got killed in Chinatown was Korean. The Korean came out. The one on 42nd Street, Chinese. These are the day-to-day person that everybody who walks, all they walk in what the Central Park of Chinatown. The expression is the uptown Chinese and the downtown. When it comes to uptown, downtown, it doesn't make a difference anymore because the common area, our children, our life is in danger. How do we get that to the next level?
Yeah. Now, good, Dave. I'm sorry.
It's a very important issue. Safety for Asians. The more we represent the government, the more we can have. This is another point I'd like to make up by Allan. Allan, how many Chinese Americans are there in Congress, Senate?
Chinese American? I know here there's Grace Meng, who's a Democrat. I don't think there's any other Republican. Judy Chu. Three.
Japanese.
Oh, and Ted.
So there's less than a handful.
Right.
So with you in there, I think the other point to remember is that government is this big bureaucracy, and they have a lot of resources. And our community doesn't have a lot of opportunity to reach into the resources that the government has. And I think one of your resources would be that we have you, someone like you, in there to help us, get into government and a tremendous amount of resources that they can provide for the community out here, whether you're a businessman or just a common citizen who's just trying to get something done. So that's another point I think that great value, great value.
Thank you. Yep,
So
Scott.
Peter and I have had this conversation. You know where I'm going, right, Peter?
Yeah, I know this.
Okay. So what I'd like to contribute to this is kind of an observation that I've shared with individuals over the last probably 2 years. And what I find is very interesting parallel. And what is occurring in the Chinese community is no different in many respects than was occurring in the Jewish community 60, maybe 70 years ago. And being Jewish, I can identify with that, is that Jews started to gain some economic excuse me, prominence in society, whether by design, by choice, they were restricted from certain businesses, communities. So they went and forged ahead and created wealth in the community. But they realized that, you know, it's great that you can have this wealth and you can perpetuate the community, but you have to then apply that resource to politics, change the narrative, and gain a seat at the table. And I think the Chinese community is there and too long deserving for a seat at the table, given their influence across the national dialogue. So it's really you, Allan, is what David, you're doing, and Stan, or the organization is really trying to empower, and Robin, empower the Chinese community to really gain that seat that's well deserved at the table.
No, you're absolutely right, Scott. And without being at the table, you know, you're either going to be served or you're going to be dinner.
Or the server.
Well, the server, right? You know, as in years past.
Can I give one Chinese joke that you guys would appreciate? My favorite line is take 10 Jewish guys to the mayor's office, they write $1,000 check, they come out with a deal. You take 10 Chinese guys in the mayor's office, they go, I got a picture for $1,000, they don't do, they walk away. That's always been the case. The Chinese don't work together, whether in Taiwan, Hong Kong, mainland China, ABC, we will lose here. That's why, Allan, you're very important. Ed is my mentor. I hated politics, but I had to stuck with it for 5 years. Whatever I learned is his fault, and I bet you through it.
So obviously, Allan, we all appreciate your public service and you have a legal background. David and I earlier were talking about the William Barr's China initiatives, actually prosecuted the innocent scientists.
Right.
That have made great contribution to the US. And you are the first generation. I look at my kids, they are also the first generation. They might look Chinese, but they are as American as it gets. So I'm hoping that you can also advocate for judiciary candidates from our community to fight for our community. And we deserve the same liberty and the same justice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what happened with that initiative was wrong. And when you take a lot of them were the scientists, professors, especially up in Boston, MIT, you know, with Mr. Chen, who just got the whole case just dismissed. But what is frustrating is, you know, many of the individuals whose lives were upended at a big financial cost, also at a cost to their reputation, their family's reputation. And after the initiative was dropped, not a single apology was ever issued to any of those individuals. And that's wrong, because you are ruining a person's name who's just trying to do good work at a prominent university. And that is what I will continue to fight against if I'm privileged to be in Congress.
Any more questions before we wrap up the formal program and go to the photo session? Before we do that, I just want to mention Andrew Young, his flight is late, so he couldn't call in. But Andrew is very, you know, excited about mayor's race. He wants to help, and he can help, particularly in a blue state. So Andrew, you know, the former Democratic candidate for presidential primary, but Ed and I had a lunch with him, and he quit, right? Now he's a leader for Forward Party. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today. We can just line up for photos.
Right,
so.
before photos, can I just take a brief minute to introduce some of the people that are my team? And I actually get a chance to meet my lovely wife, Barbara Ann, who, by the way, we met, just for all of you, back in 2012 at the Republican convention in Tampa. She and I have been partners for a long time, but I also want to introduce to my left here, Stephen Paiva. Stephen served on my staff in the mayor's office as well. Young individual, and this is why I do this. Stephen and I met at just some event. He came up, wanted to volunteer at one of my gubernatorial events. He was what, 18 at the time. Came in for his interview with this presentation and slide deck that blew away my campaign manager. And he's been with me ever since. This is the next generation that we need to cultivate moving forward. And then in the back there, I saw Jason and Doja. There's Jason. Jason's another one who's been with me. Mayor's office, in the chairs. In the back, Paula Smith. Some of you might remember Paula. Past campaigns, fundraising. Anyone, if you want to open your doors or further checkbooks, please contact Paula with any of your friends. But last but certainly not least, someone who is new to the team, but critically important because he has run many races in deep, blue states, blue districts, and won them, but came out of the National Republican Congressional Committee. I want to introduce Chris Miles, who flew up from Florida. He's the general consultant on our campaign. So please feel free to ask questions of any of us. And thank you again, all of you, for your support. It means a lot to me.
Hey, Daniel. Daniel, end, okay? Thank you.